Hi, I'm Nirav Tolia, Shark Tank judge and founder and former CEO of Nextdoor. You are watching Sachin Syal's Ochakde show. Be sure and tune in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Ochakde show. I'm your host, Sachin Syal. I'm a 16-year-old award-winning entrepreneur from the Bay Area. I'm the co-founder and CEO of 3doshas.com. We're a lifestyle company transforming lives through coaching principles inspired by yoga and Ayurveda. If you're new here, this is a talk show or podcast where I interview entrepreneurs and inspiring individuals from all walks of life so we can learn from their stories and level up ourselves. The purpose of the show is to inspire you to go for it, which is what Ochakde means. Today's special guest is Nirav Tolia. Let me tell you some more about him. Nirav is a Shark Tank judge and a technology entrepreneur, executive, and investor. He has over 22 years of experience creating and leading early stage pioneering consumer internet companies. He's the co-founder and former CEO of Nextdoor, the private social network for neighborhoods. Nextdoor is worth over $4 billion. And then he also started Opinions.com, which was acquired by eBay for $620 million in cash. So Nirav, welcome to the Ochakde show. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on the show.
Thank you. So let's start. So can you bring us back to your teen years? What was it like growing up as a teen, and what got you first interested in entrepreneurship?
That's a great question because when I was a teen, I probably believed that I would be anything but an entrepreneur. I grew up in a small city in West Texas called Odessa, the son of two Indian immigrants, both physicians, and they have lived the American dream and were in the midst of that when I was young and growing up in West Texas. I went to public school. I lived in a really nice but modest neighborhood and had a completely idyllic childhood because my parents really loved me and supported me. Now, because I'm Indian and because they were both doctors, you could probably predict what I thought I would be when I grew up. So I wanted to be a surgeon like my father. My dad is an ophthalmologist, an eye surgeon, someone that I've looked up to my entire life and still do today. And I wanted to be like him, and I wanted to be like my mom, both doctors. I wanted to be someone who could do well and do good at the same time. And so entrepreneurship and business more broadly were not really in my realm of thinking when I was a teenager. It wasn't until I grew up and went to college and was in Silicon Valley at Stanford that started to become my path.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the interview so far. Now let's talk about today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is NAC, which is the premier peer tutoring platform for colleges and universities to scale academic support for their students. NAC has partnered with campuses like the University of Florida, Rutgers, Fordham, Ohio State, Georgia Tech, and dozens of other higher ed institutions nationwide, helping them ensure no student is left behind with tutoring. Check out joinnac.com for more information on all the cool stuff they're doing to ensure student success. And now, on to the Ochakde Show episode. Got it. And I think I saw you started working at Yahoo, and that got you into Silicon Valley. Can you tell us some more about that?
Yeah, I would say that I've been so lucky throughout my life. I mentioned my parents earlier, and I think the first really incredibly lucky thing is being born to them. And then I was incredibly lucky to be accepted to Stanford and to study there as an undergrad and to be in Silicon Valley, even though I was not a technologist, I was not an entrepreneur, I was not someone who even dreamed of starting a company. But if you're in Silicon Valley in the early 90s and you care about technology, which I did as a consumer more so than an entrepreneur or a creator of businesses, you can't help but get enticed because at that point in time, the internet was starting to become mainstream. The World Wide Web was accessible because of Mosaic, the first internet browser. That was followed by Netscape, which is then followed by all of the browsers that we use today. And this idea that we could go online, we could go someplace virtual and have access to any place in a way that we never could have access in the physical world was something that really took my breath away. Because I grew up in a small town, sort of in the middle of nowhere, geography was a big limiter for me when I was growing up. It was always something that was very evident in all of our decisions. We didn't live in a big city, and the closest big city was 300 miles away. Then all of a sudden the internet comes along, and it doesn't matter if you are working on Wall Street or in Odessa, Texas, you can access the Wall Street Journal at the exact same moment. And so while I was at Stanford, there was this incredible company being formed by two grad students there called Yahoo. It was a guide to the World Wide Web, one of the first guides and the best guide. And I got another lucky break, not just being at Stanford, but having the opportunity to join Yahoo as one of the early employees, one of the first 100 employees. And I would not say that I was qualified. I would not say that I saw it as a lifetime career choice to go and work at a technology company. But I did it, and I was in the right time at the right place. I was surrounded by incredibly smart, ambitious, hardworking people. And ultimately, I wanted to be like them. And I wanted to try to create something like Yahoo. And that's how my entrepreneurial journey began.
And then that's how, well, other companies before that, but let's talk about Nextdoor right now. Let's talk about how you came up with the idea of Nextdoor and how did you grow the company?
Well, the idea for Nextdoor, interestingly, was born out of a failed company that I was working on at the time. A few friends and I had started a company called Fanbase, which was an attempt to use online community and user-generated content to create a kind of alternative to ESPN, a fan-driven and fan-centric alternative to ESPN. And though it may sound like a decent idea, either it wasn't really a good idea or our execution was subpar because we couldn't really get that to stick. And so as we were pondering what to do, shut down Fanbase, stop working for a while altogether and catch our breath, or try to come up with a new idea, we were very fortunate to together come up with the idea for Nextdoor. The idea for Nextdoor was informed by pragmatism. It was informed by a moment in time, 2010, when social networks were beginning to be mainstream. We had Facebook to connect with friends. We had LinkedIn to connect with business colleagues. We had Twitter to connect to people with whom we have shared interests. But as the founding team and I got a little older and we started to think about putting roots down, buying a home, getting married, having children, we realized that there was another community that wasn't easily accessible online. And that was potentially one of the most important communities of them all, and that is the neighborhood. And so the idea for Nextdoor was to be a social network and use this new pioneering social technology to connect people who in many ways had lost touch in the real world. When we started the company in the summer of 2010, there was a report from the Pew Institute that said that almost a third of Americans could not name a single one of their neighbors by name. And that was very different than the way that I grew up in Odessa. In Odessa, I knew my neighbors. I enjoyed being with my neighbors. I leaned on my neighbors, and I tried to help them out as well. And that created a vibrant, fertile, thriving community. I didn't feel like I had that in San Francisco, if I fast forward all the way to 2010. And so my co-founders and I felt that we had this really worthy vision of using our expertise in technology to try to bring back a sense of community to one of the oldest places where community has originated, and that is in the neighborhood.
Yeah, Nextdoor is an amazing app. In fact, I was thinking about this. I'm gonna promote this interview on Nextdoor, saying you guys should meet the person who started this app. Here's the interview to that. But yeah, let's talk about opinions.com, which you sold to eBay. What lessons did you learn from that experience?
Boy, there were a lot of lessons because a lot of mistakes were made and I stepped in a lot of potholes. There's an old entrepreneur saying that success as an entrepreneur is 999 failures followed by one success. And the idea is when you're building a company, many days, you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. Either because you learned something that you didn't know and that causes you to reevaluate the business, or you have a competitor that is doing better than you, customer says no, an employee quits. I mean, there are so many forms of adversity. With the opinions, I would say that was really my trial by fire into being an entrepreneur. It was the first time I'd ever done it. Being a CEO, the first time I'd ever done it. And without a doubt, I made every mistake in the book. I focused at times too much on style than substance. I didn't always treat people the way that I wanted to be treated, and that always comes back to bite you. I probably focused a little bit too much on growth instead of quality. And so many of these things that ultimately are required to build a successful business, I had to learn through adversity, my own adversity, how to get to those places. And with the opinions as a very specific example, we were highly touted. We had a lot of great PR. And then when the dot-com bust happened, we had to lay off people. We had to do a financing round that was a significant discount to our valuation at the time. We were essentially left for dead by many, many, many people. And there were probably many nights when I lay wide awake looking at the ceiling when I thought the company was dead. But I had an unbelievable set of people around me, both investors and colleagues. And we just put one foot in front of the other. And ultimately, we were very lucky to merge with another private company called Deal Time. The entire thing was rebranded as a company called shopping.com, which then went public and was purchased by eBay, as you said, for $620 million in cash. And, you know, it was a great outcome, but we couldn't help but feel that there were so many things that we could have done better and so many things that we would have done differently had we been given the chance to go back. But you can't go back. You have to just learn from your mistakes and move forward. And so ultimately, I would say that a lot of Nextdoor's success came about because of the lessons learned at Opinions.
Awesome. That's a really inspiring story, and thanks for sharing that. I also really love how you're representing Indians in media, entertainment, and business. How can we get more Indian representation in these industries?
Well, I'm very proud to be Indian, and I'm very proud to be American. I think that to have a culture that is so historic and has invented so many things, yet to be born in America, the country that I believe is the absolute finest in the world today. I mean, what a really lucky combination. Indians are more than ever influential, successful, and making an impact, making the world a better place. We can start and look at our own industry, where some of the most famous tech companies in the world, Google, Microsoft, Adobe, are all led by Indian CEOs. In the world of entertainment, of course, Bollywood is one of the epicenters of successful entertainment, and that's all Indian people. I think that as we start to see Hollywood in America reflect the US world in its entertainment, which is to say more diverse, Indians, Asians, Mexicans, Caucasians, really the whole melting pot that America represents, we will see more Indians thrive in that environment. Historically, there's the old joke that if you're Indian, you can either be an engineer or you can be a doctor, or if you're Patel, you can actually work in the hospitality industry. But you definitely can't be a lawyer. You cannot go into entertainment. My gosh, that could never be, a reliable or respectful job. But I think many of those preconceptions and old-fashioned ideas, to some extent, those are starting to transition away and fade away. And so I think we'll see Indians in every corner, in every opportunity that's out there, in much the same way that we see every other race doing it. I think this is not just an Indian thing.
Yeah.
This is really the emergence of equal opportunity and diversity. And it's one of the things that makes America really great.
Agreed. So I saw on a video that you said that you admire sharks, but you admire the entrepreneurs even more. Why do you admire the entrepreneurs even more?
Well, first of all, being on Shark Tank was another one of those incredibly lucky breaks that I've had in my life, and I'll never forget the opportunity. And I'm incredibly grateful to all of the permanent sharks, because they created a very comfortable environment. They were very supportive and encouraging. All that said, I've never considered myself an investor. I've always considered myself an entrepreneur. And I spent 20 years of my life as the CEO and founder of various companies. And so that's where I've spent the majority of my professional career. It's where I feel comfortable. It's where most of my most memorable and impactful experiences have been. And so the reason I was so excited about Shark Tank was I had been in the shoes of those entrepreneurs. I had pitched, maybe not the exact sharks on Shark Tank, but some version of sharks in Silicon Valley and even outside of Silicon Valley. I had been the entrepreneur that was so nervous, I could barely get out my pitch. I had been the entrepreneur who, when someone had said they would invest in me, felt like it was the best day of my life. I had experienced all of the ups and downs that entrepreneurs experience because I am one of them. And that's why for me, I love the sharks, but the entrepreneurs, well, those are my people.
Nice. I love that. I think, well, especially in like my community, I think there's a lot of teens that want to be entrepreneurs, but unfortunately their parents might not agree. What would you say to them?
I would say listen to your parents. I mean, not because I think you shouldn't be an entrepreneur, but I know this now much more than I did when I was young. I have my own kids, and I realize that a parent is someone who primally and instinctually wants the best, the very best for their children. And so where the parents are coming from is they want to de-risk the potential success of their children. And the children aren't thinking about it as something that has risk. The children are just thinking about something that can turn them into the next Bill Gates or Elon Musk, or pick your favorite entrepreneur. And so that push and pull where the parents say, well, okay, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, how are you going to do it? How are you going to make sure you're going to be successful? How are you going to vet this opportunity? And the children who are optimistic, who are almost blissfully unaware of the struggle, which is a good thing, by the way, because if you knew what a struggle it was, you might not be an entrepreneur. That creates a kind of good conversation back and forth that ultimately, I think, hardens ideas, makes them better and more sound. And ultimately, I think that as a parent, if you put your child through that test, if you force your child to run through that gauntlet, you will be convinced as a parent that it's the right thing for your kid, and you will be behind your kid 100%. But all parents feel like the kids do have to run that gauntlet. The kids do have to make sure that they are measuring twice before they cut once. And that's not a bad thing.
Okay, sounds good. I have a big teen audience. What's your best all-time advice for teens?
Boy, that's a great question. My best all-time advice would be find the things that you love to do and spend as much time doing them. Now, there are limits to that. I mean, if you say, oh, I love to play video games, I'm just going to play video games all the time. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is find the things where you are creating, where you are bringing value to the fore, where you are helping yourself and helping others. Find those things that make your heart sing and then really invest in them. Whether it's community service or whether it's creating technology or whether it's finding a way to inspire people through what you're doing. I mean, your podcast, your show, this show right here, it's inspiring people. And you've gone very deep. You spent a lot of time on it. You invest in it. That's the best advice I could give. Just remember, though, it can be difficult, it can be challenging, it can be a lot of work, but at the end of the day, you're truly blessed if it makes your heart sing. I know that this show that you put on requires a lot of work, but yeah. I'm sure that after you finish an episode or when you hear from someone who is impacted by one of the episodes, that makes your heart sing and that makes it all worthwhile. And so once again, you know, that kind of push and pull where you are putting in the time, putting in the effort, putting in the energy, but then feeling so gratified. And it's almost always not about money as one of those factors that makes you feel gratified. It's almost always about impact. I impact a person. I impacted a decision someone made. I impacted someone who was sad and now they're happy. I impacted someone who's looking for an opportunity and now they have it. I inspired someone to do the right thing. Those things to me are true wealth. Those are the kinds of things that put a spring in your step and really inspire you to do the hard work.
I agree. When, like what you said, when someone tells me like, "Oh, that episode is really good," I got inspired by that. That makes me feel really good. And even when I like reached out to you and you said yes, that I was like, this is incredibly awesome. So I was really excited. So thank you so much. Last question of the day: what was your favorite part of being on this show?
My favorite part has been getting to know you because you are very inspiring to me. You're someone who cares very deeply about bringing interesting people to your audience. I hope that I am one of those people. You care deeply about making your own mark, about being an entrepreneur yourself, and you care deeply about learning. There's an expression that I recently heard that I love, which is don't be a know it all, be a learn it all. And
That's
you
good.
are a learn it all. And that's something that's very inspiring to me. And I know that your future is really bright.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind words. That was a phenomenal episode, guys. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.